Hey, Alyssa, what's going on?
Not much. What's up, Toby?
All right, we've done our warm-up exercises. We're in a good mood now.
Oh, yes.
All right, so today we were going to talk about something that's very much on many of our clients' minds when they come into treatment is how they rebuild trust and connection with their families and their loved ones, after all that they've put them through. And I don't know, did they ask you those kinds of questions? You know, you're helping steer people into treatment. They are asking those questions.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you tell them? What's your answer?
My immediate answer is usually it's going to take time.
It's going to take time.
And it's going to take effort.
What kind of effort?
Understanding, patience, changing, identifying. You have better ones. Identifying where the lack of, the disconnection is from like what they're expecting and what you're expecting. Okay.
Well, all right. So, as you might guess, I have a bit of a formula for it.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I'm big on my formulas. First of all, let's focus on the feelings that they have when they get in here. You know, so you and I, we have some personal experience in this matter, so we can talk about what it's like to come into recovery and kind of seeing the wreckage that your addiction has caused and what kind of feelings people are running into. You know,
I fought back and forth. I was terrified, but I was also kind of entitled. Would be a word.
Okay, that's. Tell me more.
I thought, it was my parents. I'm their child. They should.
How old were you when you first got into
20.
20. Okay.
So I kind of was like, I'm your kid. You should love me regardless of all the damage I caused.
Now that I'm doing the right thing, everything's forgotten. Right. I get instant credit.
I wanted a parade. I was like 2 weeks sober. I didn't get it. I didn't get it for good reason.
You didn't get a parade.
No.
Well, but actually that does bring up the important consideration, which is, people of different ages have different expectations. And the younger people are in recovery, the more childish their expectations are. Like, I did a good thing, so I get an instantaneous reward.
Yeah.
Everything should be wonderful again, right?
I wanted it kind of like when I came into recovery, I was just like, all right, let's start fresh. And ignore everything because it's too overwhelming to think of.
Okay. And how were your parents with that approach?
No.
No? Where were they at?
They were upset, rightfully so.
Yeah.
They were proud of me and they were happy I was doing the right thing, but they were apprehensive.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
How was it for you when they would get angry with you or bring up past stuff?
I'd get so angry. I would get so angry, which only made it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they, okay. So you were feeling a little entitled. You were feeling a little scared. What were you scared of?
Pretty much everything, and the fact that I might have to face the past and make up for it, and I was nervous I might have to tell them things that they didn't know in order to make up for the past.
So if we're nervous about facing the past and owning up to them, what are the feelings that we might be running into as a result of that?
Right, everything that comes along with repairing relationships. I was just terrified.
Okay, guilt.
Tons of guilt.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Tons of guilt. Shame, maybe?
Shame.
Okay.
It was just really overwhelming. Every emotion I could possibly, because I still was not in a place where I could identify what I was feeling. I just remember feeling extremely overwhelmed and it was never going to stop and nothing was ever going to get okay again.
Right. So how did you get through all of that? You didn't have me as a brilliant counselor, of course.
I know, which I needed. Somehow I managed.
But how did you get through that?
Well, I think that it came in a lot of help was the fact that I had a therapist. I had my 12-step fellowship and the connections I had there who had people that had already been through it and kind of gave me their experience. And that my parents both had their outlets. So my dad had his own recovery network. My mom had her own recovery network to kind of separately help ourselves and then come together with that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because one of the things that we try and do with loved ones of people that are in treatment, and we've talked about this in other episodes, is try and sell them the idea that they need to be in recovery too.
Yeah.
And that can be a tough sell sometimes when the behavior of the loved one, like the you, has been so awful and is the obvious identified addict in the equation. And so I guess the question would be, what do we mean by that? What do loved ones of the addicts in recovery need to be in recovery for if they're not addicts? So what were your parents needing to get better at that was going to help?
I think that for my dad, I think he struggled with a lot of guilt because he was in recovery. So he felt like he might be part of the
Yeah, but you're the addict. What's he guilty all about?
I think he was afraid that he might have created me to be a drug addict.
Genetically or?
Yeah, genetically.
Or that you were exposed to his active addiction?
And I was exposed to both.
All right, so he had his own guilt.
Right, and I think that with his experience in recovery was a benefit and a fault because he knew what I had to do, but he also knew it was my own journey because he'd been through it. But it kind of set him up to have expectations of what he thought I should be doing for my recovery. Right. And then for my mom, I had damaged her a lot. There was no communication between us, lost hope.
Okay, but what did she need to do?
That's what I mean. So all of those things she knew, because she has sought therapy for years. Like she knew that she needed to have her own outlet to feel like she wasn't alone in this, and to have advice on like, how do I approach building trust with my daughter again? How do I have a relationship with my daughter when there's so much damage? Okay.
What do you think she learned? Just curious.
She learned boundaries, which was very needed considering I was entitled, and at the beginning I didn't really have an understanding.
Well, okay, time out. Boundaries. Boundaries is this word that people use all the time. What the heck does it mean?
It means she would tell me no.
So she had to learn to get better at setting limits.
To set limits with me, and also in the sense where it's like she had to put herself first.
Right.
She was like, you might be 20 and you might have not been an adult at 20 years old, but like you need to learn how to be. So I need to learn how to not take care of you.
Right. Right. Okay.
For me, which I needed. I was always raised to be very independent.
Okay. So she had to learn how to set limits. And what is it that keeps us from setting limits with those we love? What makes it so hard? Even though it's so necessary, so obvious, we always talk about it, yet it's so hard to do. Why is it so hard to set a limit with a loved one, do you think?
Usually when I talk to families, I always say, I'm like, when something's out of control, we immediately feel as though we need to control it.
Right.
And I think that, I'm not a parent, so I can't say to that degree, but for me, what I can see from the outsider being the child is that you want to protect us, you want to save us, you think, but it doesn't always work like that.
Well, okay, so that's true, but I'm also have this other angle in mind. Ooh, if mom says to difficult beloved daughter no, what does difficult beloved daughter do?
Freak out.
Freak out. And what does freaking out look like? Not
ruthless.
Ruthless.
My mom would describe me as ruthless.
Okay. You're no mother of mine. You're dead to me. You're out of my life.
You don't care about me. You don't love me.
Right. So really, it's the price that we pay for saying no to someone who's in an active addiction.
Yeah, it's harmful. It's scary.
It's scary.
It's absolutely scary. Now being on the other side of it for a while, like I still apologize to my mom. It's been 10 years. Right.
And I was saying this to a client the other day that he recently left to go to a halfway house, and this was something he didn't want at all, and his wife was insisting on it. And when he first heard the news, he was just like so enraged and so angry, and made all kinds of pronouncements and threats, and in the end, though, he was able to see, wow, that she had the courage to stand up to me. Really shows me now how much she really loves me, because it's so easy to give into this stuff, but it's so hard to not. And that's where the proof of love is, that your mom was able to say no to you and hold the line, even though it was the hardest thing in the world for her to do, because she would fear for the wrath and the anger and the possible loss of the love of her child.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, absolutely. She was one courageous woman.
Yeah,
for all the steps she's taken.
So easier said than done. This boundaries thing, you know.
Difficult.
Yeah. So we dear readers, we do encourage all of the loved ones to be in a recovery of their own. Many folks don't realize how enmeshed they are with the active addict and how their focus is on the addict's behavior. And, you know, we've talked in other segments about the relapse cop and how that actually works across purposes. When we are engaged with their addictive behavior, we're actually feeding it, accelerating it, potentiating it. And when they're getting worse, they're using more.
Yeah.
But when the parent or the loved one is getting worse, they may not be using, but they're acting more irrationally. They're suffering more. Their decisions, their choices are less well informed, and it's in the end, what you do lose is the connection and the relationship, and that's what the addiction loves. It's just like, ha 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 ha! I've divided and I've conquered them, and it's won yet again. So for a lot of parents, it's their recovery is how to not get sucked into focusing on the addict's behavior, how to not try and control it, how to talk about what they feel without it, within the context of the relationship, rather than it being about did you pick up or not pick up or blah blah blah. You know?
Yeah.
And it's that's subtle stuff, but it's very powerful. And so a lot of our families are actually showing great faith in us by giving it a shot. So for the addict, though, so we're going to go back to the addict. They want to rebuild trust and connection. And they're feeling guilty. They're feeling afraid. They're feeling entitled. They're feeling very impatient. They feel monstrously badly about everything, and they just want to make it all better. And so they do these things that actually make things a lot worse rather than better.
Yes.
And so I don't know. What do you observe that most clients are doing that is not helping their case? Like if you could identify a top of the list thing.
I mean, I think the number one thing that most of us do, or most of our clients have done, is just kind of react
to
the loved ones.
Right.
As opposed to hearing them out.
So Visitors Day, they come in, mom and dad say something, they're kind of nervous and they say something, or they're angry and a little of that leaks out, then the client reacts.
And I think what it does is it reinforces the fears of the loved ones.
Right.
And then also continues a behavior that's not beneficial to the client.
Okay, so why are they reacting like that if they know it's bad for them?
Takes a lot of patience and coping skill. And you would think most of us haven't listened or observed or absorbed anything that anyone said to us in a long time.
Well, what you're pointing out to everybody, it's obvious to everybody of me, I think, but if they were good at these kinds of things, they probably wouldn't be in the pickle of their place, right?
Yeah.
So you say that there's a lot of reacting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else that you've seen as patterns? Well, I don't know. You mentioned, wanting it all to happen right now.
Expectation.
Right.
The bane of existence.
Okay. Right. So yeah, I'm sober now, so everything should be forgiven and forgotten, and let's get to work here being a normal family.
Bring me all the cigarettes in the world. Okay. Buy me a new vape.
Right. Okay, there you go.
Buy me new clothes. Bring it to me.
Well,
inconvenience your day and come visit me.
Right. Right. Well, so let's go to my little formula.
Yes.
I want to see if it works for you. So, one of the first things, and this might be kind of in the category of married men and women who are on the outs with their husband and aren't certain if the marriage is ever going to be able to be normal again, or they're, just there's so much damage. And a lot of them are blowing up their spouse's phone.
Trying to control.
Well, are they trying to control? I mean, they're blowing their phone up. I'm in recovery. Things are better. I want to come home. Will you forgive me? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, or they're calling, they're blowing up the phone, or they're calling, they're writing. And what I would point out to them is like, well, what you're doing is you're chasing someone who needs a little space right now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So the first rule of is to not chase the distancer, because when you do that, it just makes them want to run even farther. And then, of course, as our clients will react to that, they'll take it personally. They'll freak out, and it just makes everything worse. But so, what does it mean though if you can't chase the distancer? What does that mean? What does that leave you with?
Not what anyone wants to hear.
Well, what is it? How hard? I mean, if you can't have what you want when you want it, you can't get all the answers that you want to have right now. So what's that kind of state is that going to leave you in?
I mean, you'll probably be anxious and you'll probably be uncomfortable, but it's learning to be kind of okay in that situation.
Yeah. And
put the needs of the other person before your own.
Right. So,
which is partially what most loved ones are looking for.
Right. So it may sound easy to not chase the distancer, but if we stop chasing the distance, that leaves us with our own incredible impatience and anxiety, the uncertainty, the not knowing. We want reassurance, but we're not going to get it. And so here we are dealing with some of our worst feelings, and we don't have our booze or our drugs to run to. So it's kind of like a recipe for almost like suffering in a way,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, this is...
we're the deliverers of great news.
Great news. Okay. I had another one is asking. So don't chase the distance. The other is asking. I had a client do this the other day. He called up his girlfriend and he said, "Do you think we have a chance?" And I said, no, listen, I know that you have this very much on your mind, but can you imagine why this might not have been the best idea? And he was actually pretty smart about it. He said, because either she was going to have to tell me some bad news or make up a story because she's afraid of hurting me. And I said, that's really a very good answer. What happened?
Accurate.
She told me some news that I didn't want to hear, which was actually worse than saying no, we're over. It was, I don't know, which means he asked and he got no answer at all.
Right.
So now he's back up to the whole sitting
which I
with not
think is
knowing.
like more than 50% of the time when you ask, you're going to get not an answer.
Right. I just,
it puts people in an awkward position. You're asking for an answer that they're, like you said, that they're either uncomfortable to give or they don't have it.
Well, and think about it. Your mom, if she was strong enough and brave enough, would have been much more honest with you, much more consistent with setting limits, but she was afraid to.
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine this girl talking to her boyfriend who's in early recovery. What's going through her mind? Geez, do I really want to be honest about this? Because my being honest in the past has caused
spiral.
Yeah, exactly. So she actually said, I don't know. And he got angry. And because, by the way, everybody, that when someone calls and asks that question, the person who's asking the question knows exactly what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't want to hear bad news. They want to hear the good news.
Yeah, they're like, oh, all is forgiven.
Yeah, right. So he was very angry. So later, and I credit him, he's young, but he did a good job. He called up and he said, listen, I'm so sorry for being so childish about it. I shouldn't have asked the question in the first place, putting you in a comfortable position. But I do want you to know that even though I might get mad about the outcome, that it's important that you make your decisions based on what's best for you and not. Yeah,
Aww.
Sounds really good, doesn't it? Yeah, well, he's good. He's come a long way, this kid. So asking those questions that are it's not a good idea. So the other one is promising, and I don't know how many times do you make promises to your parents you were never going to use again?
A lot.
A lot. Did you? But you meant it when you said it, right?
Oh, absolutely, 110%. Sometimes.
Sometimes. So sometimes you were promising to get what you wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually it was to just have them to stop asking questions.
What was that again?
Usually just to have them stop asking questions.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I have a son who does that. He gets tired of it, so he just tells me what I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I just give up, Yeah.
There's even in recovery though, there's tons of promises that I made that I couldn't keep.
So maybe promising is just a bad idea in general?
I compromise now.
Well, okay. So I'm thinking like, so the reality is that you're clean and sober and you're talking to your loved ones. You want to rebuild trust. You want to regain their trust. You never want to use again. That's true.
110%.
All right. So why is the promising bad?
Because I think it sets up expectations.
Okay.
And the reality is some of the things that I promised I couldn't follow through with. Right away. It took time.
How about from the perspective of the loved one hearing a promise?
Oh no. Well, I can't speak for all people, but for like saying, like the entitled young me when I was newly in recovery, them making a promise, it was almost like I have a compulsive, obsessive nature about me. They make a promise, I would obsess about it, and then I would hold it over their heads.
Okay.
It was like it was like I used it for manipulation purposes.
Okay. Right. So it's your leverage, but when they hear the promise, what are they feeling? Are they feeling better or not better? Is it making them feel better or not so good?
I think my parents were apprehensive. I don't think that they trusted fully that I could promise.
Right. So in other words, a promise was kind of like, a way to draw them in to dare to trust.
Yeah, they probably felt like they were getting manipulated.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I was going to use that word, but I think that's probably best.
That's that's like the word to describe how I was.
Okay. Well, I mean, but let's be honest. Everybody here wants to be sober and they want to rebuild trust. It's all very genuine, but it's promising the way to do that. And we're trying to caution them against that.
Yeah.
And we will get to how to kind of work around this stuff in a way that it is bound to pay off much more in the long run. The other one I put down is proving. This is something that a lot of parents will say to kids, and as
prove it.
What?
Prove it.
Well, no. I can hear my dad I'm going to prove to you that I can be the kind of blah, 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 right? And I hear clients saying, I'm going to prove it to you. And of course, how do they prove things? Well, they prove things by the gazillion meetings and the hard work and all the hoops they jump through. But, it's who are they doing this for? When they're proving something, are they doing it for themselves or for the other person?
For the other person.
Right. And that's a setup too. And it's also what they don't know this is that they're kind of recreating the relationship based on a condition of meeting all these goals, climbing over all these hurdles. And it's kind of, it's like the antithesis of what we want is people to be connected on the basis of their love for each other, not on what one person does or doesn't do.
Yes.
Yet we do that, and it does come out of the guilt and the urgency about rebuilding the relationship. The other one is explain. This is, not everybody does this, but you will find addicts in early recovery saying, well, let me tell you why I did what I did.
They always over-explain. It's like my number one thing to say.
And you're talking to a mansplainer.
I'm like, why do you explain? Like, why are you explaining? Why are you over-explaining yourself?
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of being explained to, especially if they have the audacity to say, this is why I used and why I did that. How am I going to feel about that? I
feel like they're trying to justify doing something that was not good for themselves.
Yeah, bang. And the other
happens
thing
to me a lot.
I think that it also is kind of like you shouldn't be mad at me because
You're not justified with your feelings.
Yeah, because I had issues and stresses, and it's like what
you should understand where I'm coming from,
right.
Even though I'm not going to offer you any understanding.
The way you put that just made me mad. So explaining is really a bad idea. Really bad idea. Yeah. If you want to hit any home runs with your family, don't do that.
No.
So don't chase, ask, prove, promise, or explain. And what we say to clients is, and we try to remind ourselves too, because we're human as well, after all.
Absolutely.
Is that when we're doing all those things, chasing, explaining, asking, promising, whatever, what do we sound like?
The same.
We sound like we're addicts.
Yeah, we sound like we're active.
Not to be trusted at all, and then we wonder why things aren't progressing along in the way that we are.
Exactly.
So, all right. So if we identify those things and we buy into that, what do we do instead? It's back to that question. What do we do instead? How do we rebuild trust? And we have to throw all those old addict-related active addiction ways away, the promising and the asking and the explaining. What? How do we do it? Come on, you're in recovery. You're successful in recovery.
What do you mean? This is a lot. It's a lot you gotta do. Right. One of them was really like the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle I had to overcome was being able to accept that I couldn't get what I wanted when I wanted it. And then to be okay in that feeling.
How did you do that?
I made a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
And I took advice so that I could save myself from other mistakes.
But you weren't doing it all by yourself.
No, I had a support system. I had guidance. I had a counselor who helped me. I had friends.
Comment on the role of the steps in this process.
So this would be the 4th step and the 5th step.
Okay.
And then the 8th and 9th.
Well, so the 4th step is about taking an inventory.
Yes.
Which means, what do I need to be accountable for? What is my role in all this shit going wrong?
Right. All the things that make me upset or angry that I write out. Right. What's my part in it? It's focusing on what I've done. So it's changing the perception as I'm the victim of a situation to what did I do? Right. Right. So and that definitely obviously helped.
Right. And then the 5th step is about turning it over. And what is turning over? What did it do for you personally? Sharing
it with somebody else kind of made me, it was a really big relief. It was like this huge stone that I'd been like walking around with was just like thrown aside, and I could breathe for the first time. I could walk freely.
Right.
And it was, it was honestly really relieving in the sense that like I had a better understanding of myself and how I operate.
But did it make all the things that you did suddenly go away?
Gosh, no. I learned from all of them. Okay. It taught me a pattern in the way that these things were happening.
Right.
And what I had done to continue that pattern, or what I had done to
So what you're reminding me is that a lot of these behaviors are very focused on what we can get out of that person or what we can convince them.
Yeah,
and it's a focus on them, not on self.
Right.
Okay.
It's focused on the other person, but it's about only ourselves.
Right.
That step helped me to realize that other people exist, and that in order for me to have better relationships, I need to think of that other person in the relationship.
And our behavior
more
and
than
our
myself.
choices has impact on others. Right. And then the subsequent steps, this work continues.
Yes.
Now, when you're making the amends, that's of course, I don't know what the exact wording is. Can't remember when it's safe to do so.
Yes.
Or
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I took lead from my sponsor who brought me through them to.
What does that mean when it is safe to do so? Like, when is it ever unsafe to make an apology or an amends?
It depends on who's guiding you through them, on what their perceptive of it is. So, if it's going to endanger yourself, that you may end up going to jail or facing charges for it, depending on who is your sponsor. It depends.
Right. Well, the other thing I would say is that...
Not to divulge information that a person doesn't already know.
Right. The other thing would be, what are your expectations? If your expectations are that you're going to receive forgiveness, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reason, because we can't control the other person's progress in their recoveries. And some people are going to stay mad, and that's their choice.
Yeah, I had people not accept my amends.
Yeah. And that's very tough.
It's difficult, but I think by the time you get to that point, if you're using all the resources that are out there for you, you're better prepared. Like, it was still hurtful, and it was still scary, and I still felt rejection and abandonment from that situation.
Right.
But I was able to handle it.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because
it's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. It is. But there's a reason why they put those steps later on in the process, right?
And they're numbered.
And they're numbered. So here's, what we say to clients is, this kind of behavior is very other focused and is very, in a way, self-centered or selfish. I don't mean that to be labeling, but it does reflect some remnant, either large or in smaller part, of active addiction.
Yes.
You want to accept that, yeah, you have guilt and shame and you're eager to reconnect, and that's all very human of you. But if you do it in a way that's very self-centered, it's going to work at cross purposes, and and that in turn will end up leading you to relapse, and then you're back to square one or even worse. And so what do you do? What do you do? Well, you're right. You throw everything you can at it to help people to take things a day at a time, and to know that there's zero chance of them rebuilding the relationships that they're using. And although they can't actually know what the outcome is going to be, at least they do have a chance if they're being sober and they're taking focus off of other and being responsible and accountable, both behaviorally and spiritually. And I tell clients at the very, very beginning, it's good to have a script or a message. If clients are sitting there and they're like wringing their hands and their heads are bowed and they're groveling, it's just not good, because people are like it's gonna make them freak out,
Yeah.
And at the same time, you don't want to act like nothing ever happened and it's no big deal.
Don't
because
do that.
So the message would be something that's honest and accountable, with some kind of statement of hope. And it could be something like, listen, I don't blame you for being angry. I put you through a lot. If I was in my right mind, I never would have done any of those things. I'm very sorry. I'm going to do my best to work this program as well as I can, and I'm hopeful that in time things will get better. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me, for your love, and I'm hopeful things are going to get better. And you accompany that with some kind of decent body language, head held high, reasonably so, and some good eye contact. But we actually do this. We'll write the message down for the clients and have them rehearse it a little bit, because if the client is sounding honest and accountable and hopeful, so much tension leaves the room, just like right with that. My kids or my husband's getting better. They sound better. But they can't ask for anything. Don't mess it up by asking for something.
Don't do that.
Don't
do that.
Maybe cigarettes or something like that. I guess, I don't know. But like, do you think we have a chance? When can I come home? Like, that'll just ruin it. Yeah. So I'll say it again. Honest, accountable, and with statements of hope and good body language. I'm really sorry I put you through all this. I don't blame you for being hurt and angry. Thank you for coming. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to work this program as hard as I can. And if I do that, I'm hopeful that in time things will get better. And that's really all you got to say. It's all you can say, really.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the truth.
Well, and then the last bit is, you can say the right thing and do the right thing, and you might get a huffy kind of a response, or the people might stay stuck in their anger. But in the end, is it worth it? Yes, because you are doing the right thing. And I call it the looking at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day test. If you can do that, and you know that you did the best you could, then you have all the reason to feel good about yourself and your recovery. I think that a lot of our clients are starting to get that. So,
absolutely.
Anyways, that's our take on rebuilding trust in our informal way today. So I hope you enjoyed it. And
somewhat
thanks.
informal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.